Welcome to VO Life, the podcast and video podcast about all things voiceover, where we talk to the most interesting people in the industry. And it's brought to you by Grave for the Brain Oceania as well, of which I am Territory Manager of Oceania. So if you're in that hood, then look us up. But my guest today is all around the world, actually. He's just come back from Brazil for the company conference. It's the CEO of Voice123, Rolf Veldman. Welcome.
Nice to be here, Toby.
Yeah.
Good to see you, talk to you again after a year.
Absolutely.
Nice.
It's been 12 months since we last caught up, and a lot's happened. The most recent thing that's happened is you've been gallivanting off in Brazil and drinking lots of cocktails, I'm sure, by the beach. And
that's why my face is still puffy.
Yeah, what was the Brazil trip all about, and how did that go?
So we're a remote company, always have been, even before the pandemic. We've always set up our offices that we don't have a main physical office, but people work from different places, and we try to see each other as often as possible. We're now at a space where we have 13 different countries represented in Voice123. All the way, we have people in Australia, so your side of the world, we have people in Indonesia, South Africa, South America, North America, Europe. So then you sort of have to throw a dart at the world map and see what is in the most central place.
I'm surprised you didn't meet on a rock in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean or something.
In hindsight, that would have been quite expensive, but might be the most true place to go, because some people had to travel for like 24 hours. So it's a bit sad, but the good thing is that we finally got to see each other for some of us for the first time. I haven't met some of my colleagues besides their torso. So
exactly.
The first thing you realize is, okay, that's how tall you are. That's how tall
you have
are.
legs. You've suddenly got legs.
Yeah.
Oh,
there's
amazing.
a whole 3D person behind this camera. No, it was a lot of fun, and it was great seeing the team, and had a wonderful time.
Yeah, I suppose it's all very well being a distributed company around the world, but there is that thing about human connection that I've missed 100%. It as well, because I used to go to the One Voice conference quite regularly and that sort of thing, and I just haven't for the last 3 years. So it's going to be interesting re-engaging with the world. Mm.
I think this is our version of conference, because a lot of voice actors work from their home studio and they don't get to see people that much. So this is our equivalent of doing that. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. So I guess starting we talked 12 months ago, and it was a very good chat. There were lots of changes sort of afoot at Voice123. What are the sort of biggest things that have happened over the last 12 months to Voice123 as a company and kind of to more generally the industry, do you think?
I think the same time last year, we were just acquired by Backstage. So we had partnered with Backstage just under a year ago. So for us on a company level itself, that's a big change. We went from the founders, Alexander and Tanya, being present in the company to no longer being there. And then suddenly we were part of a larger company with way more resources and way more experience in the entertainment industry. So for us as a company itself, just looking internally, it's been a learning process, just seeing what else is out there and learning from experts like Backstage and some of those sister companies. Suddenly, we're part of a very big team, which has been great. So that's a big one from us as a company on a let's say customer-facing side. We've been focusing a lot on making sure that the boom of the pandemic is not a temporary boom, because we had the 2020, 2021 period where a lot of people came online. They were previously offline, meaning just by sheer pandemic reasoning, you had to Google your way through VO. And then, of course, there's a reflex of some people going back. That was our plan as a company. How can we make sure that people are introduced to working in voiceover online, stay online? So we focus a lot on making sure that the clients who come to our platform stay on our platform, build functionalities for them, make sure that they have more information about how Voice123 works, how they can better manage the relationship with voice actors. Same on the voice actor side, we try to share more about what kind of clients are liking you, what kind of clients are booking you, to get more information about how your online business works. We've been focusing a lot on those kind of functionalities. And then a big thread throughout the year was what are we going to do with AI and how is it going to manifest itself in the company? So it felt like it went by in 2 minutes, even though we did a lot of stuff as a company.
Yeah, absolutely. It does. I feel like for lots of people, COVID has just reset the concept of time. It's like I can't tell how long things were ago anymore.
No,
it's very confusing. So yeah, as part of that, you had quite a big announcement at Voiceover Atlanta around the AI voice thing. Do you want to just recap for people that missed that at the time what the gist of that was?
Yeah. So the shortest version is that we think a part of the future is that AI is a tool for voice actors and clients to use. So I'm thinking that in the next couple of years, you will have your own AI voice that you will add as a package and sell it to clients, and clients will use AI version of your voice to optimize their product, which means that we as Voice123 want to make sure that you have those tools. That's the shortest version. Now, you can go different directions. What we were working on is how can we make sure that voice actors can train their AI model and have ownership themselves about that AI model, and how can we make sure that Voice123 is somewhere in that process represented in this case? How can we want to make our platform in such a way that you could offer your AI voice quite easily without us taking any percentage of that deal, but just making sure that we have the technology for you to use it in a sound way. So our announcement was we're going to start a trial with the first 20 voice actors that can record their AI voice, and then showcase it on Voice123 and to sell it as packages to client or to sell it as passive income to client, whatever use case there might be. I had spent the last 4 years researching where it's going to go, but in the last year we've been testing a bit with clients where we think AI might find a use case. At first, we were afraid of it replacing voiceover completely. We have no longer have any sort of fears in that area. We just think it's a new type of VO. It's a new tool that has entered the market. And it's going to disrupt voiceover in the same way that maybe marketplaces like ourselves have disrupted it, or how a home studio has disrupted it, or how Source Connect has changed the way you work. So I feel this is another tool that voice actors and clients need to understand. And our plan is to make sure that everybody can understand it.
It's interesting, isn't it? How they, the groundwork shifts, and you forget that we've had these sort of tectonic shifts of home studios. I mean, and the biggest thing is that because when you think about the '90s and stuff, how in order to be a voice actor, you had to be in a big city. You went to the studio every day, and those days are very much there's still that happening. It still happens, but it's a lot less.
I would even argue it's close to half of the VO work is that. So the majority of this work is still what we call in-house offline. So there's still a long way to grow, but it has been such a tectonic shift, like you mentioned. Just the fact that the microphone that you're using there now is to some extent avoidable by people rather than companies makes a change.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, you think about the explosion in uses of voice as well. Like there's so many entire categories of voice that just didn't exist back when that was a thing, and it wouldn't have been economic then. So it's kind of one of those mutual things where it's like what happened first? Was it low cost home studio voiceover, or was it the uses that they had? It's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, especially because most people still look at voiceover as if it is a TV commercial or as if it is a movie. And that has become such a small part of what voiceover is. Also, the length of content usage has changed, right? You might have recorded a thing 10 years ago and they would repurpose it for a year or maybe 2 years, sometimes even 5 years. And now, if you play it twice, you already need new content. So the longevity of content has changed, which has also changed pricing. It changed, like there's way more work, but it is at a different price. It's a different pricing, different rate. And I think AI will change the rates as well. Not necessarily go down, but just differently. You might have done a lot of. You're going to charge for pickups differently. Like they might be gone altogether with a good AI system.
Yeah, absolutely. The client can just make the changes on their end, perhaps.
There we go.
It's very interesting, isn't it? Yeah. It's very interesting. I definitely think like the pricing model has changed significantly. Like I know the word in perpetuity has suddenly popped up a lot when it never used to be a thing. It's that definitely changed. And
most clients use that because of in a kind way. Like blissful ignorance. They don't know so much about how the industry works. It's hard coming into VO from the outside looking in. Like the VO industry, I think I mentioned it before, for me only exists for voice actors, and then for everybody else, it is another thing that they do. So if you're a client working on an ad or on a video game project, the voiceover is just one part, and you try to work on it as all the other things. And then there's this whole rate business. You think, let's just do it simple. In perpetuity is what my studio recommended me. Then I don't have this hassle, even though I only use it once. So it's kind of training the people in their process on what the right lingo is and what the right legal framework is, because it can get people into trouble.
It can, absolutely. Yeah, usage is one of those really tricky things that is still changing, I think, as it went on. Like I kind of went out on a limb, a a few years ago when I sort of changed my model and basically said, if it's not paid placement or if it exists somewhere online, it's going to exist forever online. Let's be honest. Like once you've recorded a commercial and then someone's copied that and then re-uploaded it, you've lost control. Like you can't keep billing that same client forever. So it's only when you're paying to play it that sort of the licensing model applies. So yeah, it'd be interesting. Also, how dynamic advertising is starting to come in terms of personalized ads for one person. Especially on the streaming services. I know here in New Zealand, occasionally there are personalized messages now where they know your name, and so they will have a voiceover which actually references you, which makes people's ears prick up. Have you done any sort of research into whether that's something that's happening on your platform, or is that more of sort of a
we're planning to add it as a new category for the clients as well, like dynamic audio ads is what it is. And it's also related to radio, because if I'm traveling in a car and I'm connected with my GPS, I'm entering a different region, I might have to say a different location that I'm at. They try to connect this dynamic audio ads sometimes even with weather channels. So that when it rains or when the sun shines, you get slightly different content in your ears.
Wow.
There's already some frontier ad studios working on that. It's not mainstream yet, but I assume with the technology, more as companies like Spotify maybe start offering that, then of course clients are starting to get interested.
Yeah.
So that's already happening.
And
it's interesting. It's an interesting field. It's interesting how this field keeps changing. And the annoying thing is, as soon as I understand it, it's no longer relevant. Because then you have to learn again. But it's also quite interesting.
Yeah, that's so the case. So sort of coming on to AI more specifically, like I feel like there was this explosion of development around 2 years ago, like kind of just before we talked last time, and it was all like, oh, it's moving so quickly, and then it kind of seemed to settle down a little bit after like 1 billion platforms that use Talkatron 2 launched, and were just like using a plugin to just to generate pretty average audio. Let's be honest. Like I feel like everything settled down, and then all these individual use cases started sort of coming up, and you'd have individual companies sort of focusing on a specific area. What are some of the sort of the most the things that have been happening most over the last 12 months, and the stuff that you're most interested in at the moment with AI voice?
It's precisely what you said. So a lot of people a lot of founders, people who are interested in technology and interested in voice, made a presentation to a investing company, got a couple of $1 million to create a product, and then realized, this is actually quite hard. And then put on top of that the recent recession that came in 2022. A lot of these companies that started 2 years ago are no longer viable companies. It was a bit of a decline. And like with anything, like with platforms like ours, there's no one size fits all solution. There's not going to be a monopoly on voice. There's not going to be a monopoly on AI voice. It's going to be hard the same way as a human to do all types of VO. So it's going to be hard for an AI to do all types of VO. And I think after a year or 2 years of testing, a lot of companies came to that same conclusion. There's still a couple that do generic voiceover models, but most now focus on a specific niche, because AI is essentially what goes in comes out. So the AI can only be as good at as the voice actor. So they're focusing on companies focusing on AI specifically for video games, AI specifically for IVRs, AI specifically for corporate presentations, and it looks more and more like that's the way the platform is going. And it had impact for us as Voice123 as well. We wanted to maybe partner exclusively with one AI company, or maybe even try it ourselves. But we realized soon enough that there's no need, and it doesn't make any sense to try to control this. The idea is maybe put it more in the open. So our plan is, okay, these are all the providers in the video landscape. These are all the providers in a corporate narration landscape. This is how we judge them, or we might connect them with you and make sure it's the right contracting in place, because I think that's the one thing that's missing in this AI space, is how to do this within a predictable legal framework. Because I think both the people who build AI models, the clients who use AI models, the voice actors who use AI models, and platforms like ours, they all have the same intent to make sure that the rights are distributed to the right people, which in this case is the voice actor and the people who create it. But there's not a very fixed legal framework. And these new terms pop up in different contracts, but they're not good enough yet. So ideally, we work a bit together with unions, with other companies, and then we can set a standard that is applied by everyone. Similar to how I would love to get to a place where GVA or A Grave for the Brain has this is a template, and Voice123, and the union and all these people approve of this template. That makes it way easier.
Yeah, absolutely. It
Yeah.
absolutely is. It's the area that I think scares people the most because of like things like the Bev Standing story,
Yeah.
who suddenly found herself the voice of TikTok, unbeknownst to her from an AI, job she did, and also charging for it. Like even just the kind of conceptual problem around that of like when your AI voice and goes and does jobs for you, like is how does that work? Like how is that chargeable? Is it the same rate as me talking? If it can't be, there's all this sort of stuff, and also this
Yeah.
kind of this technique like they have on YouTube with the content ID or something. So if you're I don't know. I guess if your model was leaked or something, and suddenly your voice is on stuff, like how you pick up on that and are able to chase that. It's yeah.
Yeah. The edge cases that they will be there, and there will be some misuse around it. But essentially, the Bev Stanley case is similar to any fear that a voice actor has about their audition being stolen. In this case, it was quite similar. It just happened to be AI, and it happened to happen on TikTok. And I think it was not TikTok who did it, but it was one of the middlemen in the middle who did it. And I think TikTok and Bev worked things out there.
They did, yeah. Yeah,
but
it was a great sort of visible. It was like one of those watershed cases where it was like, what's going to happen? Where's it going to go? And I think it went the right direction because they did a fantastic job of representation, etc. But and of course, it's undisclosed, but at least it was very public and raised everyone's awareness to the problems that can happen.
Yeah, but as we know, like the cases on the front page is not where VO lives. It's all about this work that you do with your returning clients or regular clients. So you want to make sure that is done correctly. And I think the only reason there's no legal framework yet is because everybody's still figuring out how this technology will be used. It started off with it's going to be like a voice bank of AI voices, and that might still exist for niche cases. Then we think it's going to replace all these new categories. Oh, then it's going to be a new category. And it has created some new type of VO, like long form audiobooks that would normally not get sold. But yeah, you wouldn't price for that anyway because there's no budget for it. And then AI jumps into those nooks and crannies. And I think now it's going to be closer to a tool that you as a voice actor and you as a client need to learn as a post-editing tool and as a package deal that you could send to clients. That means that you have to change a bit of your pricing. It's easy for me to say I'm not that worried about the legal aspect because I think the actual misuse cases won't be that high because if I learn one thing from the Voice123 from my time at Voice123 is that most clients' number one care is make sure that the voice actor is treated fairly. At least that's most of the feedback that we get. Whenever we talk about AI, our clients tell us, how is the voice actor being paid? So it's been interesting to see the goodwill from both sides. It's just the how that we need to figure out.
That's great. Yeah, that's good. It's good to hear. There were some, like I know last week, my feed on Voice123, my inbox was full of the TTS jobs, like 2 pages worth with like Chinese characters across like as the title, which obviously showed that they were from China. Have you noticed, like especially like big countries like that, trying to get ahead of the space and get English TTS? Like it's definitely come across your platform and it has across the other platforms as well. Have you noticed a kind of a wave of that or a trend of that in the last few weeks?
Last year, I would say. Yeah. And there's been a couple of companies coincidentally from China that we had to block. But our system is signed up in such a way that's easy to sign up. So you create a new email address and then you do it again. So if we have a flagging system in Voice123, so as soon as we feel that these are not ethical AI jobs, we take them off. So we do review them. But there's more TTS work than ever. TTS meaning text-to-speech, and it means in most cases training the models, not actually selling your full voice, but just for training purposes. I'm going to ask to recording because I want to test this model that I've built. And because the funding in technology is still happening through those companies that we talked about earlier, there will continue to be work for voice actors that are getting paid just to record a model, and that's it. So that's a temporary time where you could say, okay, I helped train this model, but I'm not selling my rights. But I think it will shift to a moment where as soon as this technology is good enough, you will have to pay to have your own model.
Yeah, interesting. Because I saw that I've seen all these jobs come through and I've basically gone, no, blanket no, because like in my sort of the way I feel about it is like I'm training a model. It might not be my voice, but they'll say, well, we just trained a model with 2 voices and like it sounds like you, but it's not you kind of thing. And that would effectively, I'd be signing away my rights effectively. because it's not me, but it does sound
No,
like
it's a
me,
good point. So, and that's where maybe a legal framework can give some ease of mind.
Or maybe I could say as a
The
voiceover,
use
I'll only
case
do
where
it.
two voices are being merged, I don't know. I've not seen it yet.
Maybe that's something that you can define in your contract and say, I'm happy to do this as long as it's not merged with anyone else. It's on my voice only, and then I'll sell the rights to that. That's probably a good clause to add. And I think it'll be like this. It'll be like, oh, what about this? And then we'll add a clause to that contract. And it'd be good.
But just like 3 years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe, roughly, companies were paying voice actors around $100,000 to record a text-to-speech model. It took 30 hours of recording, and it took a lot of sessions. Now, the time it takes to record an AI model is 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And you have a basic model, and the quality is higher than it was 5 years ago. I mean, that's just simply because the technology is evolving. So that whole process is changing. That's why we can see the price of projects for TTS going down, because the technology is getting better.
And the time required is less, I guess. Yeah. That's very interesting. What else? The other thing, and I brought this up with other voiceover marketplaces, was, do you think there's any abuse of the audition system? Like if someone puts up a long script and then says, everyone had a go at this and they get 100 people reading it, is that enough to train a model, do you think?
For that?
Yeah. Like if they download 100 auditions, I wonder if that would be enough, or the quality would be good enough. Probably
no.
Not, I guess.
The main reason why they want to work with one actor or with only a couple of actors is because to train models, you want to have some sort of consistency, not necessarily in the performance, but in the sound environment. And so if you have 100 auditions with different sound environments, then you're going to get a very clunky combination of voices. So if I could speculate on the worst possible scenario, it might be that if I look for Toby Ricketts online, I can find a lot of audio of you. If I compile it all together, I might be able to create a model. But it's a lot of effort. Just to save money, I could also just contact you. Because what these companies are learning is that just the AI model is not enough. Because in the same way that technology keeps changing, the client needs keep changing, and the way that we perform voiceover keeps changing. Like the natural voice is something that has been popular the last couple of years. Before it was different. In the next 5 years, a new type of VO will be very popular when it comes to voice style. So you will always need the voice actor to keep engaging with the acting performance of the voiceover. So AI is constantly behind. It's not enough for me. It's not enough for me to have your AI voice.
That's cool. That's good to know. And I like the approach that you've taken in terms of like getting ahead of the game and like trying to just allow us as voice artists to decide the rules in collaboration with the clients before it just becomes the free for all. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Because there are companies like, just to put one more scary thought up top of it, there are companies like Fiverr and other companies that have been investing. I don't know if you saw the Fiverr audition tool already. Fiverr has an audition tool where which is something, unfortunately, I talked about to them about 2-3 years ago.
All right.
Well, I guess they took that idea because we had something similar in mind where you would say, I have an audition, which is like a high-end form of getting to know what you can do. I can just listen to your samples, which also gives me an indication of what you can do, but not in my script. And then there's a space in between, which might be your AI voice reading my script. It's not an audition. It's not the same as a sample because it's not the same as a regular sample because it's my script. So somewhere in between sits this, and it gives the client a slight indication of what it might sound like. So if you put that on your profile, let's say on your Voice123 profile, you have a scripts box where they can type it in. It generates your voice. They cannot download it. They can just listen to it and they say, okay, I like this. Let me contact Toby. And I think they have been trying to take that approach. I happen to know the company they're working with, and I'm not afraid of the technology that they're using there. So that's going to be okay. But some companies are already working on some tool applications of VO as AI.
Yeah, fantastic. Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, and I didn't hear about that from Fiverr, but that's very interesting that they've taken that approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, cool. All right, we'll move on from AI because we could talk about it for a very long time, I'm sure. And more into some sort of the stuff around Voice123 and how the platform works and how it's changing. Because, like you say, like would you say it's constantly in the development phase, but are you adding more features than you did, say, over the last 3 years, like in the last year, because of this extra capital we've got from Backstage?
Not yet, but we always had the sense that we made a big change in 2018 and the last month of 2018. And I feel we've been trying to complete the product ever since. And our goal is to complete it for the next year and a half to make sure that some of the missing functionalities that we feel are there should be added there. For example, we always wanted to showcase to our voice actors, these are the clients that like you, but only like this year we've added that. And there's a couple of functionalities like that we'll keep adding to our Voice123 platform before we feel it is complete. Now, it's never complete because there's always new things that come in and new developments that we would have to adjust to. But I feel that there's some things missing. I feel that the messaging system that we have is very useful to our clients, but our voice actors still move a lot of the work to their email, which is fine. But then sometimes our client gets confused on where's my conversation happening. So those are small things that we need to change. Having said all of this, my team members keep telling me, Rolf, whenever you're on interviews, you always talk about things that could still be improved. It's my natural default mode. I think as my job is to always look for things that should be better. I'm not the person to talk about the things that go well. Yeah, just to put that in as a caveat.
Exactly.
But my focus is on things. Let's assume 95% as well. But the last 5%, it takes the longest, but is where a lot of our efforts are.
Yeah, nice. That's fantastic.
Well, and of course, there's a big functionality that we introduced 2 years ago, which is the ability for clients to not just audition voice actors, but also book them directly. And that's we had it as almost like an optional feature there, and we'll keep it as an optional feature, but it's keep getting more and more used by more clients, especially in combination with the ability to pay securely. We see voice actors using that whenever they have a new client, just for the first payment. And we see it for clients using it if they have to pay out multiple voice actors. They prefer to use one system to pay. So that's a functionality that's growing a bit, but we need to make sure that the way usage is negotiated in that form is more flexible for the voice actor and the client to negotiate a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
and
we're
things like
creating more and more
well.
features there.
That's good. Yeah, I saw that come on the upcoming features bit that you've got on your site, which is actually a really good part of the site. Where if anyone wants to like see what's coming up, it's what's it called? It's under the booth, isn't it? It's like upcoming features.
Yeah.
I had a tab open here.
If you just Google Voice123 roadmap or Voice123 product roadmap, you will get.
Yeah, and it's
we'll
great.
Get our basic features.
There's stuff coming up like adding video to your profile, which is exciting, and the flexibility around booking would be fantastic. And with the booking thing, I've definitely found that it's been very good, and you get paid a lot quicker than you might otherwise. Like it comes basically straight away, which is cool. But occasionally, like I'll get booked and I'll think, oh great, I'll do the job, deliver the audio, and be like, where's the payment? And they haven't actually started or they haven't chosen to use that, and so there's not too much visual difference between a job where it's been booked through the system and whether it hasn't. And it's just one of those sort of
we've been doubting to go into the escrow space, right, because it puts the fear into our users, because that will happen with voices, and then suddenly they were in the middle and they changed the rates and made everything go dark. We don't want to do that, but we also want to we don't want to get. We've been having these examples that you mentioned where client books, but maybe is not 100% sure yet. So we want to force the client to pay at that moment and make sure that we can release this straight away. So we're starting to do that more and more. But I think what we're planning to do there, or what we're already doing, is make sure that every step of the way, everybody sees what is going to Voice123, what is going to the voice actor, and what the client's actually paying. So there's no mirage of what is happening. Fully transparent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you've got a very good track record with transparency, I think, in terms of, you're very clear about what you do and why you do things, which definitely works in your favor, which is fantastic. On the subject of that, so the algorithms drive most sites these days. Like it's data in, data out. Something happens in the middle there, which is just like there's only a very small percentage of people on Earth who can decode these algorithms or code them. Likes is something on Voice123 that some voice actors that depend on it for their living kind of have a religious fervor about. Like, it's, how many likes have I got today? Like, it's a metric that drives people to change their behavior and change what they do on Voice123. Personally, I've never actually even noticed like what I get liked for and what I don't, or how many likes I have. It's just I just go on and do the stuff and see what jobs arrive. But like, how do they play into how visible a voiceover is on the site? Likes, how important are they?
So we have two ways to get work on Voice123. One is we have a generic search, right, where we have all the voice actors in a list, and that's where client can type in words like, I need a conversational voiceover, or I need this kind of voiceover. And that is directly connected to your sample name. That's one algorithm that we have. So that's why sample names are very important. The likes are not important, anything related to the search. That's one, the search and contact. Then we have another one that is about clients wanting to receive auditions from multiple voice actors via project form. Our promise to the client is that we'll deliver relevant auditions. Relevant meaning that they fit your specs. And then it's up for you to decide who you're going to work with. The way that clients are motivated to distinguish between the different voice actors that come in on their project inbox is by giving 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1 or 2, or no like at all to a voice actor in their proposal inbox.
So they can actually rank that. It's not just a like on or off. It's actually a star system, or it's a 1, 2, 3, 4. Interesting.
Yeah, because as you know, a lot of clients have their own clients, so they want to share who they're working with as almost like similar to how agents work. Like, I have this series of voice, I let them all audition, I select the 5 and I send those to my clients. It's similar to how our algorithm works. We just have to make sure that instead of 300,000 voice actors applying, we need to make sure that a handful apply. That's why we use the algorithm. For us to sort between all those people, we use a mix of memberships and likes. So depending on how much you pay and how many likes you have, you get invited sooner or later. That's the basic of it. Now, there's a flaw in it.
Right.
The flaw in it is that it feels subjective, and not every client uses it.
Right.
The best way for us to know whether or not a audition was successful or not is whether we know whether you get booked or not. But that conflicts with our fundamental approach of we don't want to control the whole process of VA. We want the voice actor and the client to have their relationship, and if they want to move it offline, they move it offline. So the like does not tell the complete picture, but it tells us enough to have to make a decision.
And how does that work with if you're encouraging clients to book direct, or if someone books you off search, that doesn't count towards your likes at all, does it? And it doesn't if someone finds you on the project but
if they
like
book you from an audition, if they book you from an audition, that's now part of a like.
So okay, cool. And is that a recent change, or is that?
Yeah, there's a last couple of months.
Okay,
and we want to make it easy then for the voice actor to basically pre-fill that information, so the client only has to press accept. Like, even easier would be, let's say a project X happened, and then 2 weeks later we ask all the voice actors, did you get booked or not? And they say yes, no. There's an honor system in that. So it's because if you always say yes, then you say yes. But that will be another way for us to get to know whether or not the audition was successful.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Like trying to find a way, like with the system which just lets voices interact with clients.
The thing here is that on an individual level, it doesn't work. But because we have hundreds of thousands of auditions happening, it works because of the sheer volume of data. We can get to see, okay, these people are getting likes and these people are not getting likes so much. They need to still work on their on maybe selection of the projects they're auditioning for. And we see that in a lot of cases where people start dropping, especially in the beginning of their career, it's mostly because of their sound environment, not necessarily because of their performative qualities. So we're starting to provide more feedback loops to those voice actors. Say, okay, this is what our clients are directly or indirectly telling you. This is what you should work on. That's
good. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's absolutely one of the things that I hear most is people thinking they've got a home studio when actually they've got a microphone and a basement, and it's not.
They got all the equipment, but it's all about soundproofing the environment.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So and the likes, they expire, don't they, after a year?
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So it's basically, so you kind of got to keep your A game rolling. You can't just sit on your laurels and be a big voice actor and get to the top every time.
The idea came from the fact that we don't want to get like a monopoly from people who have been doing this for let's say you had 100 likes 5 years ago, and for the last 3 years you haven't received any likes, also because maybe the type of voiceover that is on Voice123 is changing. We want to make sure it's up to date. We want to give new entry people also a fair chance. So yeah, it's constantly recalculated.
Yeah, absolutely. So are you seeing, I mean, you saw lots of people join during COVID, as like talking about new entrants. Like lots of people came in. Did you see an exodus as well as people sort of, went back to their day jobs, or what kind of inflow have you seen of people taking up voiceover and leaving as well?
Well, there's two types of people that came. One are people that have not experienced VO before and thought, okay, this is a way to work online. I can perform. Let's try a thing like Voice123. But the other voice actors that have been joining are people that normally only work through an agent or work in a local studio and then suddenly had to change their setup and go online. Those people stay. The people who tried it for a year are filtering out. But we have those people coming on even before and after the pandemic, people that want to change their career and realize after a couple of months, okay, this is really hard. Maybe I should not start straight away on a matching site like Voice123, but maybe start with a company like Grave for the Brain and learn more about the basics of and the fundamentals of voiceover before I pour everything in trying to make it work. So we see that there's definitely been a spike in, but some people have stayed as well, particularly those who were only working in studios before and now working online.
It's interesting to know, because it's always interesting seeing what types of people are coming on. Like I'm always amazed at how whenever I run my voice courses, how there's all these different groups represented. There's like the gamers that want to get into gaming voices, and there's like the ex-actors, and there's like people trying something different. And it's interesting to see which whether how those demographics have sort of shift sometimes. So yeah, that's interesting. So the some of the competitors that you have in the space, like the voiceover marketplace space, Voices.com, for example, has made some pretty big changes, which lots of people said were sort of influenced by Fiverr, who's the biggest player. Well, so someone told me that Fiverr had like a massive market share in online voiceover, which I was quite surprised about, because I don't really take much notice of Fiverr, but and I'm not on there at all. But do you have any idea of how much of the market share they have? It's in the lower end.
Yeah, not so much. No,
not so
for
much.
them. So the way that Fiverr makes money is because they have every type of freelancer work on there for a Fiverr, right? So what they do is that if I'm looking for a voiceover and I happen to go on Fiverr, for them it's more like a tool. Okay, now that you're here, look at this editor. Now that you're here, look at this video producer. Now that you're here, look at this engineer. So their market share of each of the individual categories is not that big, but the sum of its part is quite big.
Yeah, right. So
and they do have a lot of voice actors, but there's mostly voice actors that are just getting started or do it as a side gig to some of the other projects. So their market share is actually not that big. In fact, when I was trying to talk to different companies about whether or not Voice123 should acquire, I also talked to Fiverr and other companies. It was interesting to see that they do need to work with a company that has a way larger market share. There's still clear two big digital players, and that's Voices and us. Everybody else is at best half below that, Fiverr included and Upwork included. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. And I mean,
they have a big part of the content share.
Yeah,
where our clients live, which makes it interesting.
And I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, both Voices.com and Voice123 are very much specialist. Like they're very niche sites in terms of like this is all we do, as opposed to all the other stuff. Although Voices has moved into this kind of space of sound engineering translating, which I don't think has necessarily taken off that much, but they've definitely sort of indicated that's their direction. They're also getting rid of their they announced their platinum membership and making it more of a kind of a level playing field, as it were, or at least giving it some kind of like Voices like a rating system, so you don't actually pay for it, but it's based on the kind of meritocracy. Is that something that Voices123 might consider in the future, sort of leveling it, or is it? Do you think the stratified? Because I know you've struggled with pricing. There was a list at one stage of there were like 20 different kind of prices and all these different what you get for that, and it's simplified a lot. Again, it's not as simple as it was, but it's definitely come down in number. What change? Can we expect any changes in terms of membership levels in the future?
No, not necessarily of membership levels, but of membership perks. Like we want to add more things to memberships because there's two ways to grow more. One is to take more, and the other one is to offer more. I think in our case, offer more is more closer to our strategy. So let's say you're a starting voice actor, you might start off with a $395 plan on Voice123, or maybe a lower plan. And maybe the first 6 months you have access to a series of courses, or maybe you have access to us reviewing your home setup. So I think our way of being competitive in the industry has always been memberships. So we're going to keep that way. I know that Voices is changing that slightly. It also allows them to have more people pay, right? So because they will have a lower price point, they might even take more of the transaction. So I don't think it's necessarily out of wanting to level the playing field. It's more about how being more in every transaction at a higher rate. I think the membership model works for us because it puts ownership in a voice actor as well. With these new memberships that we've added, we have had more paying voice actors, and because we had more paying voice actors, we had more happy clients. Because if you're paying to a product, you're more invested in if you can use it for free. Having said that, you can use our product for free if you get started. But those who our clients love the responsive voice actor, and you're more likely to be invested in a company if you are paying for it. If you're using all these pay to play or all these different networks for free, then it's hard to keep up. So we'd rather have you invested in ours, so you're part of the success.
Yeah. Nice.
So no, I don't see it changing so much. I think the Voices plan is they've invested a lot of money since 2016 when they raised that round. I think they raised about $20 million. And they invested it mostly in sales teams, and now they need to show for growth. So it's been interesting to see them work. It's interesting to realize they were not that different in size in terms of how much work flows through the platform. We're different in size in terms of company. We're only 25 people. I think they're 100 plus. But it's been interesting to see that even with all these new companies coming in and going out, that the two remain here. Now, it's not to say that we need to be complacent. I think the whole marketplace idea, the pay-to-play idea, is ending in the next couple of years. I don't believe it is very viable for the future. I think the next generation is already looking for more VO work on digital spaces like a TikTok or a Twitter, or any kind of creative space, rather than having a platform like ours, unless that platform is structured more as a tool. So I keep mentioning the word tool because that's one of our plans in the next couple of years, to switch more from the marketplace towards a tool. I think that's the only way for us to stay relevant in VO.
Yeah, it's giving clients the access to those high quality voices that they're used to hearing on all kinds of things, without having to just trudge through like 200 auditions. Because having done that before, I know just how it's a real pain point is just having to get through those. And actually, that was the other thing I was going to ask you about. It looked like on your website, in June you mentioned that you have, where is it? It's the Voiceover Services and Solutions by Voice123. So it sounds like a similar thing to like managed services or projects. So you're kind of agenting voices because you've got knowledge of the platform. Is that? Am I reading that correct?
Sort of. We've always we call it a self-service platform for clients. You do everything yourself, and then we started to tracking how many clients that are posting for the first time on Voice123. And to be frank, how many clients are posting on other platforms for the first time? How much do they know about VO? And in between 50 and 30% of the people use VO for the first time. I have no idea how it works. And sometimes they have quite complex projects. So let's say they need to hire a voiceover in 5 different languages. It's going to be hard if you don't know how to do it. And if you talk to an agency, they tell you, well, give me 2 months and I'll do it. But they have a deadline of a week. So we figured out we can be almost like your production assistant on your crew. And that's how we're trying to position ourselves to these clients. And we help them either manage the service completely through the platform, or we occasionally help them with translations or with any of the post-production needs they might have. So we've been moving our way into a managed service kind of solution. Yeah,
right. That's interesting. And will jobs be popping up that are from like the client is Voice123 effectively?
Yeah, I think more and more. Yeah.
Cool.
Which a good thing is very clear projects. We will always say that it is on behalf of somebody else and as transparent as what we can share from the client's perspective. But it will happen more and more, because we realize, why are we so actively removing these people? Because then they will just go to different companies. We can help them around. We can help them a bit, train them how to use it, and they can use it themselves the next time. And there will always be complex projects where you want to need help. And some there's companies that have their in-house creative team, or some companies that go outsource. If you have your in-house team, it's nice to have an assistant on board that can do the VO part of this, because we realized, and I know this almost sounds obvious, but I realized more and more the last couple of years that we are experts in VO and how much that is worth, and how VO is such a specific niche with their own rules and their own game and their own rules, I guess. That we can start to offer services around that without it taking away from what we have. It's just adding new types of work that would normally not come to Voice123.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. That's a really good thing. And I guess it's that's straying into the territory held by agents traditionally. But the writing's been on the wall for quite a while that agents are kind of like in this new world, as you say, like, with TikTok and things that are just so fast and so furious and frankly scare me to bits. But like, the old agency model seems quite slow now in terms of it takes days to turn around. It costs an extra, 20% or whatever. Do you see it as moving into that space? I mean, it does sound like that's the kind of space.
I mean, I would love to in the near future have like a Voice123 agent, which is basically a team of people on our platform that behave as agents. The way that agents work now is that they use email. So they send out a huge list, listen to every single audio, have to structure it all email, give it back to the client. It takes days, or the agents get burned out. And there should be technical solutions for this. And in fact, that is what Voice123 is if you use it correctly. So it seems very obvious for us to maybe have some voice actors on our roster that are only doing this type of work. But it is also conflicting with what we have now. So we have to really think it through, that it doesn't, quote unquote, eat up our existing business, but it only works for a new type of work. I see use cases for that.
Interesting. It's always such an interesting tension between the clients and the voices and the platform in terms of like and trying to balance the work between experienced voices and new voices, because there's a kind of a place for both. And there's like I've talked about it before, the different trophic levels of that have sort of separated out now in the online voiceover work, where you've got the really sort of low stuff that's sort of below, I don't know, $400, right down to sort of, $10 or $15 for real newbies that are doing very low impact work. And then that kind of mid layer of sort of e-learning and stuff that needs to be professional, but it's not like, it's not acting, or it's not real top level voiceover. And then the sort of stuff that's replaced the old studio work, which is, the multiple thousands of US dollars. And it seems like, the people settle into those kind of different layers, and some platforms have settled into this sort of different layers. So it's interesting to see how it has evolved. And how do you make sure that sort of... No, you go on.
How long does it take to get to that last stage, you think?
Yeah, exactly. It's based on a number of things, including like how good you are at voiceover, but also I think the context you build up. But it's also an audio engineering thing as well. Like it's the space you're recording in, and it's how you process your voice. And I feel like it's all these different factors which aren't that clear to a newbie in terms of like it's you. I mean, it's why Grave for the Rain was set up, of course. It's so that you can like learn from the people that have been on that journey already and kind of get a ticket through. But it's an interesting thing.
Because I think I like that distinction, but I think how hard is it to get in this first place in that group now versus how hard it was maybe 10 years ago? And I think what the digitalization of VO has done is that that part of it is easier, because 10 to 15 years ago, if you wanted to succeed, and maybe even 5 years ago, if you wanted to succeed in VO, you almost need to have an assistant, more so than you need a manager, to manage all your contacts, to make sure that your finances are in order, and then also find time to actually do the work. Like you're running your VO business as a business, and then a lot of people who are successful on our platform are maybe partners, tend to be spouses from each other, and they work together. Or, and we see that more and more, digitally native people that grew up with internet tools and find it easier to automate sort of this work, like make sure that they use the same system for invoicing, the same system for contacting, and they're prioritized that part. And they seem to be able to move along that organizational part of VO faster than they were able to 10 years ago, and purely because they have more digital skills.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
It's interesting.
it's a lot easier from that perspective now. You've got things like Zero that can do your accounts, and there's so many online tools you can use to just make things so much quicker and easier. But also, I feel like there's no gatekeepers like there used to be in terms of like in the old days. It was like you went to an agent. If your reel was no good, or they already had someone like you on their books, they wouldn't take you on because they're like, well, why would I want a duplicate voice of the voice I've already got? You had to fill a pigeonhole that they didn't have filled. And so now, I mean, you can, as long as you do have the talent, I think it's a lot easier to move into that area where you're earning well and can convert into being a full-time professional voiceover. But people still underestimate how much time there is around actually just doing voice work. Like it's basically it's like I don't do voiceover for a living; I audition for a living. Sometimes I get to work, but
the stereotype is you're in studio performing all day. But
we're not all Don LaFontaine anymore. Like he's the icon that used to just move between studios in a stretch limousine, because he made more money having a stretch limousine apparently than he would if he was catching taxis or getting to other New York studios in that time. But anyway, I digress. Cool.
No, but if I can go on one part of that a bit further, is that
totally.
One thing that has aided to that change is that the switch to putting creators at the center, meaning more ownership and more authentic voices, meaning that resulted in more voiceovers needing to have a face and needed to be seen. And you used to have more of a generic type of voiceover that was American. But now we want to make sure that we have minorities represented, and we want to make sure that everybody's represented in the different types of VO, which by default makes it more people have access there and have to grow to a certain extent faster to an echelon than it was 10 years ago, where we're all fighting up for the same place, and that the barriers of entry were kept shut by the same people knowing the same people. It's one of the reasons how Voice123 got started, is because we have Latin American founders that found it hard to get the foot in the door, that created technology to have more access. I still like that, to remove those kind of obstacles, and I still like that part of our Voice123 story a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and it is so true. I've had lots of conversations with actors who have got a lot of work in the industry over the years about this new this new cultural phenomenon of cultural appropriation and things like that. Like, you used to be able to do accents, and now you have to think quite hard, and it's much more of a narrative about where the jobs come from and who should do it, kind of thing. Like, there's so much more of that comes into play. But there are so many more people at the table now, which is fantastic, and thanks to places like Voice123 and the other voiceover marketplaces, because like you do sort of just need a bit of sound engineering knowledge, a good studio, and a microphone, and you can compete with the rest of the world.
Suddenly, you could talk to Coca-Cola.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And as those companies do ever more kind of like diverse and splintered advertising in different markets, I feel like there's a bright future in humans doing voiceover as well as the AI stuff.
It's growing. It's growing. It's the thing that grows the most, which is why we have, for example, also video on our roadmap, is because I'm a reader myself, but people go more from reader to watching, and from long form watching to short form watching. It used to be you read a book, then you watch TV, then you streamed series, but now series are too long and you watch TikTok videos. Like, it's a bit of a hyperbolic flow, but there's a lot of content being created, a lot of things being created on educational spaces, on inspirational spaces, in advertising, that is now only video. I know that sounds obvious, but the amount of things that were written just a couple of years ago, the way that Google is changing written form to video form, all of that is accelerating the need for more video, and that means more voiceover.
Yeah, it is a very interesting space. I mean, in the world of audiobooks and things like that, which we're always, where I'm definitely I don't read books anymore. Like, I definitely just listen to audiobooks and love it when I do. But I am amazed at the YouTube Shorts phenomenon and like everything getting shorter and shorter now. This whole like, it seems like Vine had the right idea like 10 years ago, and it was like 7-second
just
videos.
Did it slightly wrong.
Exactly. But the thing that scares me about TikTok is just like how aggressive it is at really wanting to eat your attention. Like it won't let you quit the app until you've watched like at least 3 videos, just trying to get those hooks in. And it kind of scares me. And I know a lot of voiceovers struggle with this, like I do, about social media and whether we need a presence on it and whether anyone gets any work through it, because everyone's posting all the time about what they can do. But I think I've only ever got one job through social media, and it was on LinkedIn. And it just doesn't seem to be a thing people hire voiceovers through. What would you say?
It is, unfortunately, but it's hard to crack. Because and this is where running your VO as a business is hard. Like there's like four or five, maybe even 10. I might not know all of them. Places where you can specialize in VO. You can go the agent route or agency route. You can go the online marketplaces route. Let's say, okay, I want to be present on Voices or Voice123. You can go into the creative community group, which is TikTok and other creative communities. Make sure that people refer you. You can go direct marketing yourself. Try to build your own brand. There's all these different places that you can go, but you used to be able to do all of them a bit, and that was enough. But now you have to really choose 1 or 2 and go at it. Those people who do focus all in on TikTok might not have such a good result on Voice123 or vice versa. It's hard to do all of those things at once.
Yeah,
but there is more like it's a referral system for a lot of people. So they do. Some people do well on places like TikTok and other forums.
Very interesting. Well, I think we've been talking for about an hour, which was my aim. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you sort of want to tell people about or discuss?
No, I think I want to really hammer home that the way that we've set up our booking functionality now for our voice actors is to make sure that they can get booked directly, and paying through the platform is always optional. But that we're pushing it in part to make sure that the algorithms that we have are more relevant than just the likes that we have. So help us improve it. But no, we keep going on the same path. Yep.
Yeah, cool. Fantastic. That sounds good. I also would encourage people to check out your About Us page, because it's got this wonderful collection of little GIFs of and where all the people are around the world and doing something like appropriate to their country. I think it's like a really nice bit of the site that I've stumbled across before. So it's a bit hidden, but it's one of my favorite pages as well. A lot of GIFs. Absolutely. Well, I wish you all the best with the jet lag that you're currently suffering. It's probably about 4 a.m. as far as your body's concerned.
Yes, I'm pretending to be awake.
Exactly. You did a good job. This was just a very scary dream that you can now wake up from.
This is my AI.
Exactly. Nice one. Oh, well, thank you, Rolf. We'll catch you again maybe in 12 months.
Yeah, will be great.